A special presentation from the KTVB Newsroom. Bronco Roundup Game Day starts now.
Welcome inside the KTVB studios, and as always, you can see Jay Tust out on the field in Seattle. I'm Brady Frederick, and we're trying something new today, the Bronco Roundup post-game show. Jay, things just wrapped up in Seattle, not the result that Boise State fans wanted to see, but what are some of your immediate takeaways from the game before we jump into the press conference?
You know what, Brady? We've been talking about Michael Penix Jr. for, the last 9 months and how difficult this matchup was going to be for Boise State. I don't know if we hyped him up enough. He throws for 450 yards this afternoon. He tosses 5 touchdowns, most of those coming in the first 2.5 quarters of the ball game. By the way, those 5 touchdowns, one shy of a single season game record at the University of Washington. At the end of the day, Boise State, a few too many mistakes and basically no answers to slow down Michael Penix Jr. in the second half of this ball game. It results in a 56-19 loss for Boise State. The Broncos dropped to 1-0 on the season, falling to the 10th ranked team in the country. Brady, I mean, we can talk about this, all we want, but it comes back to the offense wasn't consistent enough. The defense couldn't come up with stops. 56 points, Brady. 56 points are more points more points than Boise State gave up in any 2 games to start the season combined, dating back to 2018. So a rough go in the season opener when it comes to, again, preventing points, and that's obviously the name of the game.
That's right. It was such a promising start for Boise State. That second drive of the game, they really showed off what their offense could look like and what some of the potential was. You saw everybody getting involved. Eric McAllister looking good. Ashton Jeanty punching it in, giving the Broncos the early lead. But in the end, Michael Penix Jr. really showed us all why he's that Heisman candidate. UW really showed us that they're legit. They're number 10 in the nation for a reason, and, probably looking to move up as this season continues.
Man, I agree with you there, Brady. And coming up in moments, I'm going to add this too. We will be hearing from head coach Andy Avalos, who drops to 17-10 all-time as the head coach at Boise State. Also, Alexander Tubner, he had 11 tackles in today's game. He's going to speak with the media. And then finally, Ashton Jeanty, a very big bright spot, I would say, for the Broncos today. 109-yard receiving. He scored only 2 touchdowns. Scored 2 of the 3 touchdowns, I should say. No, the only 2 touchdowns, I'm sorry, for the Boise State football team today. And so we'll hear from those guys. He also had 51 yards rushing for the Broncos. So he was definitely a bright spot for the Boise State football team. Going back to that opening drive, Brady, or the first quarter, you're really right, man. Like, there were some explosive plays on that drive, and it was Eric McAllister, it was Stephon Cobbs, it was Ashton Jeanty. They all really complemented each other really well, and it got off to a great start. It made it look like this offense was going to be really explosive, but UW was able to kind of counterpunch this thing, and they kind of shut Boise State down really for the rest of the game. They had a couple of moments, but nothing crazy, and so at the end of the day, man, call it what it is, Brady, a blowout loss for the Boise State football team. It's not often since I've covered this team that they've given up 56 and only scored 19, a pretty wide margin of defeat there. Boise State now 0-3 all-time at Husky Stadium. All of those losses by at least 14 points. The closest defeat they suffered here was back in 2007 when they only lost 24-10, Brady.
Yeah, I mean, they knew going into it that University of Washington was going to be a great football team. They were coming in confident, but I think they knew what they were getting into a little bit. Hearing it from defensive coordinator Spencer Danielson earlier in the week, they were excited to go see what this defense could do, but they knew a little bit that they were going to be exposed in certain ways and that this was going to be a good learning experience for the team moving forward. And, I mean, I guess if there's a silver lining, you give up 56 points, you're going to have a lot of tape that you can go by and study so that you can get better for UCF next week.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Brady. And the fun of the post-game show, by the way, is, we're kind of showing you how all this plays out after a game. Boise State, they allowed a number of big explosive plays today. And just kind of looking this up, they had a few of their own that they were able to hit on. But UW, 16 big passing plays of 15 or more yards. I'm going to reiterate that, Brady. 16 completions of 15 or more yards for the University of Washington. That total would be good over half of a season for some teams, in all honesty. I mean, that is a big number. A number of those were Michael Penix Jr. touchdown runs or touchdown passes. I think the interesting thing, Brady, for when it comes to Boise State's defense and UW's offense, early in the game, and meaning the first 2 drives where the Broncos got off to a great start, Washington was running the ball more often than they were passing the ball, and it was not working out for them. I think, if I recall correctly, Washington ran the ball 4 times on their first 5 plays. Over the next 31 plays, they only ran the ball 5 times. So, you know, they really got after Boise State through the air. And I know that you mentioned Spencer Danielson. They wanted to take away those easy access throws, so some of those quick hitters, you know, off the line of scrimmage or whatnot. They were able to do that, but then once Boise State did that successfully, you saw Michael Penix Jr. say, okay, I'm just going to test it deep. I'm going over the top. And he kind of did that time and time again. So, yeah, just a tough one, man. A really tough one for the Boise State football team today. I will say this, Brady, if we want to go half-class full approach, which I like to do, especially when it's game 1 of the season, they will not face a more talented offense or a more talented quarterback the rest of the season than Michael Penix Jr., Brady.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. There's a lot to build on, even though the end result wasn't great. Let's take a look at Michael Penix Jr. in the game that he had today. 29 of 40 passing, 450 total passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, a 73% completion percentage. Also, Dylan Morris, their backup quarterback, got in there for a 31-yard touchdown pass in addition. So the Broncos gave up 6 touchdown passes in total on the day. We're going to catch up with Jay a little bit later after the post-game news conference. For now, let's dive into some of these highlights, because as we said, in front of 65,000 fans on national television, things started off pretty well for Boise State. Andy Avalos coming back to what was an old rival when he was the defensive coordinator at Oregon, and things started off pretty well. We'll show you this one right here, second drive of the game. Check out the grab from Eric McAllister. The coaching staff has been real high on him this season. We were always real excited after seeing what he did last year, what he could bring to the table this year. Just has the ability to go up and get it. Things would continue to roll through that Texas connection. Taylon Green hands it off to Ashton Jeanty. Number 2 gets to the outside, breaks in for the first touchdown of the game, the first Bronco touchdown of the season. And as we've kind of said, not going to lie, there's not too many Bronco high points from this point out, but Ashton Jeanty was great on the game. But UW's offense would come alive. Michael Penix Jr. showing why he's got all the Heisman hype this season. Here he is on third down, trouble with the snap. It almost gave him some extra time that felt like the defensive backs slacked off a little bit. Jalen McMillan all alone for the touchdown. UW would keep it rolling. Penix had 4 passing touchdowns in the second quarter. That's a UW record. Boise State would still show plenty of fight. In fact, they put together a very nice 1-minute drill after the Dogs had finished up all the fireworks coming in to close out that first half. Taylon Green was able to lead the offense downfield, set up a Jonah Dalmas field goal that made it 28-12 at halftime. The Broncos would then get a big spark from Jeanty to start off the second half. He took a screen pass 50 yards to the house in the early third quarter. That would get this game within 9 points, but it just felt like whatever Boise State did, UW always had the answer. As we said, they would go on to win this one 56-19. And as we keep it rolling, you know, we are waiting to jump into the post-game news conference. We're going to hear from Andy Avalos, get his thoughts on the season-opening loss as soon as we can. But as we keep continuing to run through the stats, some other things that stand out. Jalen McMillan, Boise State's wide receiver, one of their great guys returning. He went for over 100 yards today, 132 yards on 7 grabs, 1 touchdown. He had a long of 29. Another guy breaking 100 tonight, Jalen Polk, 101 yards, 1 touchdown grab to his name, 50 yards. And Rome Udenze also having a big night, 132 yards, touchdown grab. Boise State really had their hands full, but as we've said throughout it, it's going to be a great test. It's something that they're going to be able to build on. Let's talk about the positive, though. Ashton Jeanty was lighting it up. We were talking about how we want to see this guy make a big next step forward in 2023. And I'll tell you what, based on what we saw today, especially with George Halani being a little bit banged up, not being limited for a couple portions of the game and having to go into the locker room and get checked out before returning, Jeanty was there to step up just like we saw him last year. Something that, you know, we're excited to see him do again. Let's start with his rushing stats. 44 yards for a touchdown, a long of 9. Those aren't, insane stats, but they are going against an extremely talented defensive line out of the Huskies. Receiving is actually where Genty would kind of tear it up today. He only had 4 catches, total of 109 yards. He was the Broncos' leading receiver, long of 50 yards. Yeah, that was the big spark in the start of the third quarter. Taylon Green dumped off the screen to him, took it for 109 yards. Some other guys we can take a look at. George Halani had 51 rushing yards on just 10 attempts, a long of 11. Hey, when you're averaging over 5 yards a carry, that's a big night for him, even though they didn't get to use him maybe as much as they would like to. A thing that a lot of fans have been pointing to, maybe they didn't use Taylon Green and his legs as much as they would have liked to. He only had 5 attempts carrying the ball, a total of 31 yards. And, Boise State, maybe it's good that they're trying to lean on his pass game a little bit, but his run game is something that makes him so electric. And this is where you got to wonder if other teams, throughout the college football landscape, and even specifically when we get into Mountain West play, how much tape there is on Taylon Green, how much that's going to make a difference when you prep for Boise State and have teams figured out how they can shut him down on the ground. I mean, you take a look at the last Mountain West Conference game they played. Fresno State was able to stop them through the air pretty easily. Not pretty easily, but they put together an impressive defensive effort and really shut down the Bronco offense. There was a point in that season last year where it looked like they couldn't be stopped. We go through Boise State's receiving totals. Eric McAllister had a pretty good night himself, 69 total yards, 7 catches, a long of 19. Really excited for what this guy can be doing this season. Steph Cobbs, one of the veterans in the wide receiver room, 56 yards on 6 catches. He had a long of 40. 10 targets on the game for him. Billy Bowens, 23 yards on 3 catches. George Halani taking 2 catches out of the backfield. As we take a look, you can see on screen, we are getting ready for our press conference. We're going to hear from head coach Andy Avalos as he drops down to 17-10 in his time at Boise State. Here we go now live to Seattle.
I just like letting have
Well, actually, we jumped the gun a little bit too quickly on that. It looks like they are still getting things set up out there. According to my producer, are you saying that we're going to get Jay Tuss back out here? All right, Jay is going to be coming back out in just a second as we continue to stall out as we get ready for the press conference. It's our first time doing a post-game show here on KTVB, so it's pretty fun, and I appreciate you guys sticking with it as we continue to get things rolling. Let's take a look at Boise State's defensive stats, because there were some other high points on that. Alex Tubner led the Broncos in tackles today. 11 total, 8 solo. He had a good pass breakup as well, really stepping into that role, filling the shoes of an all-time great Bronco in J.L. Skinner. DJ Schramm, the team captain, holding it down, 4 solo tackles, 7 total tackles, a tackle for loss. How about Andrew Simpson pulling down Michael Penix Jr. for the sack? Not too many people have been able to do that throughout his time at the University of Washington. He only got sacked 5 times last season, so pretty impressive that Simpson is putting himself in that list of people who's able to get it done. That was the only sack the Bronco defense would get on the day. Jalen Clark also showing some promise in his first start at the cornerback position. Well, he actually started in the Frisco Bowl, but he's coming out for his first full start with an offseason under his belt to get ready, taking that boundary cornerback position. He finished the day with 6 total tackles, 5 of them solo, 2 tackles for loss. That's the stat that really jumps out to me, and a forced fumble. So pretty good game all around for him. Some other big notes, Shea Oladipo, another guy he's still kind of a younger guy compared to some of the other players we'd seen in the past, but a lot of experience under his belt. He got a lot of playing time last season. He had 2 solo tackles, 3 total tackles, and a tackle for loss. Kaanohi Kaniho also stepping up, getting some play at the cornerback position. He had 3 solo tackles and 4 total tackles. Ahmed Hassanein, we've talked a lot about the D-line. He had 2 total tackles, half a tackle for loss, one that he shared with Herbert Gums. And as we bring Jay Tuss back into the fold.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Jay, how you doing? Good to have you back.
Do I got you there, Brady?
Yeah.
I'm good, man. Sorry about that, bud. We a little bit of a delay here. I guess that tends to happen after a loss. Following the game, usually head coach Andy Avalos will address the team. It's taken a little longer this evening, clearly, but we are moments away from the post-game press conference beginning. I will remind you, Coach Avalos, as well as Alexander Tubner and Ashton Genty, going to be addressing the media following this loss today. While I was walking back to the press room, Brady, I will say, had the chance to find out a little stat that might be a little alarming, I would say. Boise State gives up 490 passing yards to the University of Washington today. Michael Penix Jr. accounted for 450 of those. But that 490, the 8th most in school history that they've allowed, and the most they've allowed since Hawaii hit them up for 495 yards all the way back in 2007. That was a very different time in Boise State football. So a historic, I guess you could say, loss for the Broncos. And Brady, I don't love the theme that's developing every time we come here to Husky Stadium. Last time in 2013, it was a pretty similar feeling leaving this place there because it was the worst loss of the Coach Pete era in terms of margin of defeat. Brady, not the greatest feeling, I guess you could say, leaving Husky Stadium here these last couple of times.
Yeah, and I think you and I, Jay, have made it pretty clear as proud Washington State alumni, pretty used to that feeling of leaving Husky Stadium after watching your favorite team lose a game. So just know, Boise State fans, we feel it. It's tough. It's hard to go up against Washington, especially when they're that great. Well, hey, Jay, you mentioned Alex Tubner coming onto the press conference. He's, getting starting time this year, filling it the huge shoes of J.L. Skinner, led the Broncos in tackles today. We got to see it on TV, but I mean, you're at the game. What did you see out of him tonight?
Yeah, it definitely seems like they tried to attack Alexander Tubner, especially kind of late there in that second quarter. Like I mentioned, the University of Washington really started to open up on offense there for a while, and they attacked Tubner, got him a few times. With that, we are going to head live inside right now as the players and coaches begin the post-game press conference.
I was excited about how we were playing at the line of scrimmage. Obviously, that's always a huge part of it. I was really excited to see how we were competing, in really all three phases. But when you're playing the number 10 team on the road, there's got to be a level of consistency. And so, as we just said in the locker room, when that sun comes up tomorrow, we're going to work on building that. And it really comes down to the basic emphasis, which is football every single day. Playing with great discipline, with great eye control. We got an unbelievable team that we're going to be able to grow into a good team. And being able to draw from these experiences here today and this first opportunity is going to be huge for us.
They had almost 500 passing yards, and a lot of those guys were wide open. What did you see in the passing?
Yeah, that's really in the second quarter it was a huge quarter for them in terms of explosive plays. And really, again, it just comes down to playing with eye control and understanding playing and sticking to the plan, and we've got to do a much better job as a coaching staff. That starts with me. We understand what we're coming into here, and the wide receivers we're going to see, a quarterback that is a Heisman candidate. Week in and week out, though, we're going to see some personnel that creates great challenges like that. And as we prep and prepare as a coaching staff, we'll do a better job, and we'll learn from this. And it's we knew coming into the season that we have some guys that have played a fair amount of football, but it is going to take gaining some experience, and exactly what it looks like to be able to be successful when you're playing some elite talent like that, in order to be consistent.
We saw Ashton do a lot of things tonight, both in the receiving game and in the running game. What did you think of his performance?
Yeah, we're, again, excited about there's things that we did in this game that we're excited to see. The bottom line is we can't give up that many explosive plays in the air, and we knew we were going to have to play much better in the red zone, and those were two critical factors for us in terms of eliminating touchdowns when we got down in the red zone. We didn't do that today. The run game, we ran the ball well, but we didn't have as many attempts, obviously, as we would like to. We only had 24 rushing attempts to score, given the nature of the score. We were throwing the ball more, but I was excited to see how Ashton not only ran the ball, how George ran the ball, and and then to be able to see what they're able to do out of the backfield receiving the ball. I mean, Ashton had some good plays there that we were able to capitalize on, and again, that's not just those guys. It starts with the offensive line. I was excited to see how our offensive line competed. We had a couple freshmen playing for us today against a very big front that has some experience coming back, and so that's something we can draw from and continue to build forward on.
In the first half, you mentioned the amount of passes versus runs, but I think when the game was still close, it was 24-13 still passing. I mean, were you just seeing something through the pass there, or would you like to maybe run the ball a little more?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to be able to have a plan to get the defense moving on the field, and then obviously within there, then the run game will come along with it. But I was excited about what we did. We were able to move the ball, in terms of offensively early on in the game. To your question, I mean, I wouldn't take anything away from what we were doing, through that first quarter and early on into the second quarter there.
Andy, when it comes to Taylor, we've talked a lot about his response this year. He gets off to a really good start, going 6 of 9, over 100 yards. He had a stretch there where he didn't complete a pass for 10 straight attempts, and it ended with that run ended with a pick.
Mm-hmm.
He was good to start the second half, but what did you think of his response today, I guess?
Yeah, you know what? For him being, a young quarterback that is still learning, developing, and growing with every opportunity he gets, I mean, I'll stand by TG every day of the week. I mean, the competitor he is, I wouldn't necessarily say all of those were on TG. But again, that's us as a team, and being more consistent and taking advantage of some of those things we had, the opportunities that again would have kept those sticks moving and kept the spark going with the offense.
I know season opener wasn't going to be perfect, but what do you think of special teams? I mean, you scored the touchdown, you missed the PAT, put the ball on the ground a couple times on that kickoff, and then you had a chance to pin him at the 1, and it slips into the end zone. So what did you think of special teams today? Yeah, I mean, there's a level of consistency there that we've got to improve on in the execution of, the extra points, taking care of the ball. Those are things that are a must. Those are things that, we just spoke about in the locker room. That, again, whether you're playing the number 10 team on the road or, whatever opportunity you get, those are the things that, we'll grow from and we'll do a much better job. We had an opportunity to pin them down there deep, and we missed that opportunity when James, I felt like James punted the ball really well today. The first snap was a little high. He handled it, got it off, and I thought he did a great job today. So, again, there's bits and pieces here and there early on in the season. It's got to be, we as a coaching staff, we'll work diligently to make sure there's more of a consistency within it.
You mentioned not all the incompletions are Taylor's fault. I mean, is there anything you can attribute the drops to today?
No, I mean, it's one of those deals, like, just to focus on finishing the play and obviously getting the ball in our hands first.
Seems like a lot of guys were slipping out there. Was there anything issue with the cleats or the ground?
Yeah, there was. I mean, there was a few guys in coverage, a few of the wide receivers too, in that situation. That's something that we're going to have to look into. I mean, it's the same cleats that we've always worn. Yeah, that was something that we were trying to, we were communicating about that and making sure early on in the game, because it happened more than a few times within coverage. And then obviously for wide receivers coming out of their transitions and the routes. And so naturally the first thing that we were talking about is we got to make sure that our feet are underneath our hips when we're transitioning out of routes, that, as a DB, it's feet before eyes, and making sure, which obviously doing a better job of playing with eye control in the secondary will help some of the other situations that we ran into, the explosive plays as well.
You guys struggled for a few drives there in the second quarter, but then ended it, getting that field goal, came out in the second half, and had that nice screen pass to Ashton. Just kind of at that point, how comfortable were you guys feeling with the way the offense was moving?
Well, we always talk about how we finished in the first half. Again, by no means, the end result today is not the standard, but the way we ended the first half, the way we started, there's some things within there that we can build off of and create a level of consistency, in all three phases that will help us, in our next opportunity.
The final score is what it is, but you said, I think earlier, that you have an unbelievable football team. I mean, how do you leave here, I guess, knowing you have another big game in 6-7 days, but overall, I mean, you can't let one game turn into two, I guess.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, that's football from week to week, and we're fortunate enough that, we've got a schedule here that it's going to require us to have that mentality. It's 10% of the situations that happen, always 90% of how you respond. And so when I say we have an unbelievable team, we have a team that will respond. We have a team that when the sun comes up tomorrow, we're going to be ready to work and grow, jump in the film room, and get those cleats back out on the grass and work to create that level of consistency for our next opportunity.
You guys had an early sack, and you're obviously going against one of the better O-lines you're going to face. What did you think of the pass rush and the guys up front today?
Yeah, there was, it's when it comes to defense, everything works together. And so it's not just a matter of coverage, but you got to disrupt the timing in the passing game. And really there in the second quarter, we needed to do a better job with that. We obviously gave up too many explosive plays, which involves getting pressure on the quarterback. Obviously, maintaining and leveraging formations and routes is a huge part of that as well. So we're gonna, from this first opportunity, we're gonna be able to learn and grow from it. We've had very successful defenses here, and this defense will grow into a defense that is very competitive.
Couple more. I know you mentioned Ashton a little bit earlier, but 109 receiving, over 50 rushing, led your team in both. The 50-yard run off the screen where it looked like he was going to wait for a blocker to come up, and they just said, I'll make a miss and just go for it. I mean, how impressive was Ashton today, sign of things to come? Yeah,
there's no question. I mean, there's when we look back at this film, not only what was visible today, in terms of plays like you were just talking about from Ashton, but there's going to be other plays too that we're going to see that, like, we're right there. But when we're in it like this, again, when you're playing the number 10 team in the nation, you can't be right there. We got to be able to execute and be able to capitalize on the situations, because there was more than enough plays in all three phases as we talked about.
Obviously, the big plays, I mean, Washington did that to almost everyone on their schedule last year. Is that something where you can kind of fix it with one or two things, the eye control, the discipline, or is it just like, hey, these receivers are just that good one-on-one?
Well, there's a certain level of handling personnel. This is a game that we talk about all the time. This is a game of personnel and being able to understand where matchups are, and really it comes down again to not just once that ball snap, but the pre-snap and how we leverage formations to take care of the personnel and understand how we're going to handle those things, and then how we play the techniques once the ball is snapped. But again, I mean, we had an opportunity to play what was the best passing offense in the nation last year, and we could have, there's a few plays that we obviously could have done a much better job with that would have kept us in a tighter ball game. But those are the things we get to learn from, as we move forward. And I love these guys. I mean, I love the secondary, and that's why I say I'm excited to get back to it tomorrow and work on improving these things, because it's a group that cares. I mean, these are great young men, and that go along with that, as we already talked about. I was excited about how the defensive front played, in the run game. They're very stout in the run game, which obviously pushed Washington into the pass game.
It took Penix a couple drives to get started, but once he gets started, it just seemed like he was just nearly impossible to stop. How tough is it to get a quarterback like that when he's feeling it like he was?
Yeah, it's again, those are the challenges we knew we were going to come into this game. You want to keep it from getting rolling that way. There's certain things that, again, as we go back in and we analyze this film and we look at it, there's going to be certain things that, obviously are within control, and there's going to be some things that are within the game when you're playing an elite quarterback with some elite wide receivers, and we've got to be able to handle those plays and move on to the next play and have a next play mentality.
Anything else? A little bit of a sidebar. I think I saw Wilkie on the field today, and isn't he a true freshman walk-on?
Yeah.
What is he, a local kid? So.
Well, yeah, local kid. I mean, obviously, Troy has been tremendous in, in his time at Boise State so far, the effort that he brings, a guy that is, is one of the fastest players on special teams day in and day out, and so that's the opportunity. Again, we're building a team that, and it's not just involved in the guys that we've seen play on the field. We had a couple true freshmen out there today, which is, again, exciting for us. for guys to be able to come in an environment like this and get some experience so that they can draw from that and understand what it really is and what it looks like to grow forward. And so, yeah, Troy's been doing a really nice job for us.
Taylor threw that second interception, but he was the first guy down the field to make the tackling and stop from being a score. What do you think that says about the fight and the competitiveness of the guys?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, that's that's one of the plays. It was a screen play, so naturally, you're going to draw the rush in, but there was a little bit too much heat there on that one. They actually brought a blitz up the middle, and one of the blitzers fell out right into the screen lane. And again, at that point, it's about how you respond and get a guy on the ground. And so, Taylon's going to be able to grow and learn from this, and Taylon's going to have a good year. I'm really impressed. I think I know he's put in a lot of hard work in the offseason and has been consistent, but there's going to be things that he can learn from this game.
All right, thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Ashton and Duke's going in here. Questions for either Ashton or
Alexander, I know that Spencer was talking about going into this game, wanted to take one of his easy access throws from Penix. How hard was it to slow him down once he got going and starting to stretch the field there?
Yeah, I mean, credit where credit's due. He's a very talented quarterback, and if you're not doing an effective enough job getting him off time and taking those away, then it opens up, drives, and it's hard to stop them at that point.
It seemed like they were really, when they were spreading it out, attacking you one-on-one a lot. I mean, what did you see? I mean, I assume you saw what you knew was coming, but how tough was it in some of those one-on-one matchups?
Yeah, they got talented receivers. They got a talented quarterback who's fully capable of getting the ball in tight windows. So I knew what I was getting into. Wasn't able to win every one from multiple standpoints, whether it's pre-snap or just technique play, but lots to learn, grow from here.
Ashton, what were you seeing on those screen plays? You seem to be, working those pretty well today, getting in a couple big games.
Yeah, those ends were, shooting up the field real hard, so we just took advantage of that space, and it opened up pretty well, and, we were able to maximize on the screen games today.
What did it feel like to score that first touchdown, Ashton? You seem pretty fired up, and that's kind of a statement for you guys, it seemed like at that time.
It was definitely a great feeling, to drive down there, as a team, together and just, keep chipping away. But, it was definitely a great feeling to finish the drive off with a touchdown.
What did you think of the running game tonight? In the first half especially, it seemed like it was working, but you guys were going to the air a little more. I mean, I'm sure you want to run every play, but what did you think of, how you guys were fixing it up there? Yeah,
I mean, I think the run game was, effective today from the start, but, our part of our game plan was, we knew we were going to have one-on-one, so we wanted to, attack, right, but, at the end of the day, we didn't accomplish what we needed to. We didn't win our one-on-ones when we had the chance, so, we just got to go back and go to the drawing board and, learn from it and fix it.
What do you think of, seeing Bush's offense kind of against the defense? You guys had, seemed like a lot of shifts and motions and creativity with putting the wide receivers in the backfield and stuff.
A lot of, shifts and motions, to get the, safeties, eyes everywhere, make them have bad eye control. So it's just a great tool for us to have on our offense.
Do you feel like you saw kind of glimpses of what this offense could be? Because, again, you guys had some nice moments. There was just kind of that stretch in the second quarter, couldn't complete a pass, and it was just rough going there for a little bit. But do you feel like you saw glimpses of what this offense can be?
I mean, yeah, definitely. We got a lot of talent on this offense. We got a lot of talent on this team in general. But, Offensively, we just it came down to execution. Third downs weren't converting on third downs, so against a team like this, you gotta drive down the field, you gotta score, right? Because they got a high-powered offense too. Kudos to them. So we knew going into this game that we had to go. It's going to be back and forth, but yeah.
Xander, for you, how much of it was them, just them being really, really good, or you guys maybe making some mistakes that you wouldn't normally make? You got to go back almost 25 years to find the last time Boise State gave up this many points without going to overtime.
Yeah, you have to give credit where credit's due, right? They got explosive playmakers. They got a good offense. They got talent on that side of the ball. But at the end of the day, a lot of those points can be erased if we operate how we know we can. And, it starts with me. I take full responsibility. There's mistakes I made that resulted in points on the board today. And I think everybody on our defense would, step forward and take credit for some of those points and situations that we put ourselves in. But, it's, you talk about stats, this and that, and I'm sure both Ashton and I would trade any one of those or all of those stats to walk away with a win on the day. But we got to learn, we got to regroup. We got a super good culture and family in this locker room. So those mistakes that were made today, those are what we're going to be able to fix going forward.
When you say mistakes, is that just like the pre-snap of like where your eyes are, or like footwork, or all
yeah, across the board, I think there was mistakes all over the place. I know for myself, both of those categories you listed today, I made mistakes, some resulting greater than others. But, without getting into too much of the game plan of everything that was going on, there's obviously a lot of room for everybody to improve today.
In terms of your guys' confidence, you obviously have another big game next week, and Andy came in here and said we have an unbelievable team that's going to respond. What's just the mindset having to flip the page here after, a 37-point loss?
We really just got to come together, rally. We can't hold our heads down after this. It was a tough loss, but, we're only going to learn from this and get better. And, stuff like this is going to happen, adversity. We talk about it all the time. So we just have to respond. We're as tight. A lot of guys who've been here 4 years, 5 years say this is the closest the team's ever been, since they've been here. So I have no doubt that we'll come together and, get better from this and, go attack next week.
Ashton, what do you think of Taylor today? He got off to a really good start, and then I know it wasn't all on him. There were a few drops in it for sure, but he had a stretch there where there was 10 straight incompletions and culminated in an interception before he kind of got back on track. And I know when you're playing the 10th ranked team in the country, that's going to hurt. So what do you think of Taylor today, about his kind of response to all that?
I think he played well today. Obviously, just like the rest of us, he made his mistakes just like the rest of us on this team. So it just comes down to everyone as a whole, right? Because maybe he threw an incompletion, but, was there pressure in his face? Did we protect long enough for him to stand in there and make that throw? So it's just lots of different things that you have to take into account.
How are you, maybe first Ashton and then Alexander, but how are you guys to get home and open this thing up on the blue? Because the UCF team, I can't remember how many yards they rushed for the other night, but it was a lot. So maybe first Ashton outside here to get back home opener.
Excited, to get a, we got plenty of games left this season. We just have to shift our focus, right? It hurts right now, but we got to get over it. Shift our focus on the next task ahead, because we got another great team in UCF. So we got to come ready to play and just learn and get better.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I'll say one thing this team is very capable of doing is learning and not making a lot of the same mistakes twice. So there's, hard to say there's anything good from a loss like this, but there's going to be definitely plenty to learn from. And one thing we will do is put our head down and work. And, whether there's 50-plus points on the scoreboard or not, the guys in this locker room won't quit. and that's during the game, in between games. Like, we'll figure stuff out and we'll come back stronger.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you.
All right, you just heard from Ashton Jeanty and Alex Tubner following Boise State's loss to Washington 56-19. It was a tough loss, but it wasn't a devastating loss. You know, there's a lot of things that they can improve on, but there aren't really any questions. I think Boise State has made it clear the way they can handle adversity based on last season, the way that they can push forward, grind in practice this following week, and get ready for UCF. Well, I want to jump back into the highlights for anybody who's joining us right now. It's one of the biggest season openers for Boise State in recent years, kicking things off in Seattle on national TV. 65,000 fans in attendance for number 10 Washington. BSU's offense looked great on the second drive of the game. Check out the grab there from Eric McAllister. He had a great night. Coaching staff been real excited about the jump he's made from his freshman to sophomore season, and things would continue to roll through that BSU-Texas connection. Taylon Green hands it off to Ashton Jeanty. Number 2 gets to the outside, breaks in for the first touchdown of the game, the first Bronco touchdown of the season. Not going to lie, not too many Bronco highlights from here on out. UW would really come alive. Michael Penix Jr. showing off why he's got all the Heisman hype to his name. Bobbles the snap there on third down, but still is able to complete the play, get it over to Jalen McMillan. He's all alone for the touchdown. UW would keep it rolling. Penix had 4 passing touchdowns in the second quarter. That's a UW single quarter record. Boise State would still show plenty of fight. They put together a nice 1-minute drill drive after the Dogs finished up their offensive fireworks. Taylon Green was able to lead the offense into the red zone, set up a Jonah Dalmas field goal. That would make it 28-12 at halftime. Started the second half. The Broncos had a big spark from Ashton Jeanty. He took a screen pass 50 yards to the house in the early third quarter. That was a nice spark. He had a great game. If there's a silver lining you can take away from this, that would get the game within 9 points. It just felt like any time Boise State was able to make something happen in the late game, UW always had an answer. In the end, they would run away with it, 56-19. We take a look at some more stat comparisons. Total yards in the game, UW had more yardage, 568 yards compared to Boise State's 402. The passing yardage is something that really stood out, 490 yards to 264. Now, Jay Tust is going to be joining us in just a moment here. Oh, we actually are going to be able to go live to him right now. And Jay, I want to ask you this because you were at a season opener last year at Oregon State. Tough loss for the Broncos in that one as well, but this one does feel a little bit different, wouldn't you say?
I would absolutely agree with you there, Brady. Last year's season opener, it seemed like Boise State just wasn't prepared. They made a ton of mistakes. They get barely a quarter into the season, and they removed their senior starting quarterback, right? This year, they actually got off to a great start in this game. I remind you, they jumped out to a 6-0 lead. They missed the PAT, couldn't build off that momentum, but I agree with you, Brady. This has a much different feeling. At the end of the day, Washington is a really good football team, and at the end of the day, they're much better than Boise State. I think it is what it is. The scoreboard would suggest that. They are a very old and experienced team. I talked about this earlier this week, Brady, the fact that this Washington team didn't have a single football player drafted this past spring. It was not due to a lack of talent, but all of that talent was so excited to come back and do something really special here on the shores of Lake Washington, right? And so they are experienced, motivated, connected. This is a really tough task. I think we saw that today for the Boise State football team, and we continue to bring this up on the post-game show. But Coach Avalos harped on it. Alexander Tubner harped on it. The fact that Boise State gave up those 16 explosive plays through the air, that is simply unacceptable. It is too many. But again, from the positive approach, I guess, to this, Alexander Tubner at the end of his press conference said this team is very capable of learning and not making the same mistake twice. They will have to put their money where their mouth is because a very difficult task is coming up next Saturday on the Blue against a UCF team that was actually more of a threat on the ground in their season opener, accumulating close to 400 yards rushing in a blowout victory over lesser competition. But still, that grabs your attention, Brady.
Yeah, absolutely, Jay. And I mean, maybe that is something that bodes well for the Broncos. They only held Washington to 138 rushing yards. They also came out with 6 tackles for loss. One of the issues, though, I think that really affected the pass game, they just couldn't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. It's a new Bronco defensive line, and they weren't able to disrupt things. That's going to give them too much time to try to pick apart another young group, the Broncos secondary. But something I did like from Andy Avalos, you know, he said, hey, we're rolling with Taylon Green. You take a look at what Taylon did tonight, 244 passing yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, a couple incompletions. He only had 49% completion on the game. But as Avalos said, going 13 of 39, you know, not all of those were on him. Some of the drops were simply just drops. But, I mean, what were your takeaways from Taylon's first start in his second season?
Yeah. My takeaway is I asked a question about Taylon and his 10 straight incompletions, but I probably should have included more in my question because those all weren't on him. He had a few receiver drops in there, some protection issues. It did add up to 10 straight incompletions due to one person or not. That doesn't really matter, but it's the 10 straight incompletions that was alarming, especially when UW's offense was clicking on all cylinders. I mean, this is my takeaway, Brady. We talk about it being the 10th ranked team in the country. Boise State was not going to be able to come in here and play their B or C or worse game and not only not win, but just compete, right? And I would walk away from this saying that Boise State was far from their A game today. I don't even think they were close to their B game today. I think it settles somewhere around their C or a little bit even lower than that when you consider some of the mistakes that they made that they really truly believe they can get corrected. They have 6 days now to turn it around, figure it out, again, before UCF comes to town. But that's my takeaway at the end of this thing, man. Like, they've got to be better. They've got to be better. If you want to compete in a game like this, you have to come in here and check every single box. I mean, for me, Brady, I'll bring up special teams, and I actually asked Coach Avalos about the special teams effort because earlier this week I was concerned. That is an area. When Boise State has been able to pull upsets, they dominate special teams. They dominate field position. They call it the hidden yards battle, right? And today, they didn't do any of that. They were in terrible field position all afternoon. When they got the chance to back up UW deep in their own territory, even at the 1 or 2 yard line, they let a ball bounce into the end zone for a touchback. So there were just a lot of little mistakes. They put the ball on the ground twice on kickoff. Caden Dudley did it once. I think that they replace him, then Cole Wright does it. These are all things that are just kind of unacceptable when you expect to come on the road and try to compete with the 10th ranked team in the country, Brady. I think you would agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely, I would agree with that. And, you know, one of the things they harp on the standard of Boise State a lot. It's one of the buzzwords we hear in every news conference with the team. Well, I think part of the Boise State standard is the fact that you need to be able to bounce back from adversity. You can look at many games where Boise State had things go the wrong way, and that would end up being a turning point for the season. BSU able to turn some things around, make the changes they needed, and grind it out in practice. I mean, last year it was the UTEP game. This is obviously a much different situation because most analysts did not have Boise State coming to Washington and leaving with a win. I think they wanted to see it be a little bit closer this time out. But a lot to work on, and it's something they've proven in the past that, you know, the culture of this team, they are able to bounce back and not have a season kind of get washed away, not go 0-2 and turn things around.
Yeah, you know, I got 2 points as we probably move to wrapping this up, and we'll tease news at 10 coverage with highlights and post-game reaction too. But the 2 points, again, they might kind of contradict themselves a little bit. The reality of the situation is that 2+ years into the Andy Avalos era, Boise State is 17-10. He inherited some problems. That's not an excuse. That also is a reality, and it's taken him some time to rebuild this thing. I don't think the cupboard was completely stocked. Even if they had some starters that were impressive, it was the guys behind those that would eventually take over for them that he has really had to put a lot of time and effort into. But in a way, I would say at 17-10, sometimes you lose the benefit of the doubt, and I think that might be happening. It is definitely prove-it mode. Now, with all that being said, that's the negative. Here's the positive. There was that turning point last year at UTEP. Andy Avalos made some critical changes, and we're not at the point of critical changes yet by any means, but he made some critical changes that were really tough. Became the first head coach to fire an offensive coordinator mid-season. And after that, they righted the ship. They go 8-2, and they still win 10 games and a bowl game, which, that is one of the standard for this team. It's winning a bowl game and also a Mountain West championship. Came up a little short of the championship. They get 10 wins, win a bowl game, and so. The Broncos are in improvement mode, man. And they got a really tough task. You were exactly right, Brady. Not a lot of people thought Boise State would come in here and get a victory today. I think the most optimistic people in Boise were hoping that it would be competitive. That wasn't the case. But now you look at a run of games coming up. It is paramount that they protect the blue next week. I think that's where, if they can successfully do that, that's where the culture and all that stuff truly is as good as they say it is. The brotherhood is as strong as they say it is. Protecting the blue next week, getting a win over UCF. You do that, you pick up a win over North Dakota. Now all of a sudden you go out on the road against San Diego State to kick off Mountain West Conference play. Don't love the Aztecs offense this year, so I think that's a winnable game. But then that following week coming up, you have 8 days to turn around before you have to go out on the road and play Memphis, a long trip for the Broncos. So this is the stretch of games. I think that a lot, it's fair to say that just about everybody thought that this would be the case coming out of this game. But now the crucial stretch, the season-defining stretch for this Boise State football team is about to begin, and it begins next Saturday on the Blue, Brady.
That's right. We're heading into that gauntlet of a non-conference schedule as Boise State really looks to take care of business against a new Power 5 opponent in UCF. That's going to be a fun game. It's going to be a great opportunity to protect the blue. Jay, thank you so much for joining us in the post-game show. I want you and John Mark to get back home to Boise safely so we can see you tomorrow night on Sunday Sports Extra. For now, tough finish for Boise State tonight, 56-19. Washington takes it. We're going to have more highlights and reaction coming up tonight on the news at 10. For now, thanks for sticking by us for our first Bronco Roundup post-game show, something we're pretty excited about this season. Looking forward to making it bigger and better each week that we go on, but thanks for being part of the first one. We'll see you tonight on the news at 10.